There was a young boy named Olakunle who lived in a tiny village called Lodun. Even though his family didn't have much money, Olakunle loved learning more than anything. Olakunle was so smart that all the village elders were amazed by him. Whenever they saw the young boy, they would shake their heads in wonder at how quickly he understood hard things. His parents were very proud of their bright son. Even though they had to work long hours on the farm, they did everything they could to help Olakunle get an education. They skipped meals so they could buy him books and pencils for school. Olakunle studied as hard as he could every night by the light of an oil lamp. He never wanted to let his parents down after all their sacrifices. When the big exam called WAEC came around, Olakunle got the highest scores anyone had ever seen. His amazing grades won him an incredible prize. He got a scholarship to study abroad for free. Olakunle could hardly believe his good fortune. On the day he was to travel, he hugged his mom and dad tightly. With tears in their eyes, they told him again and again how proud they were. Then Olakunle waved goodbye to his little village and set off with a huge smile to get his education abroad. For years and years, Olakunle studied everything about law. He went to the best schools and worked harder than anyone. Finally, after lots of sleepless nights, he had become a very important professor of law. Though he was so successful now, Olakunle never forgot his humble village roots. He decided it was time to go home and visit his loved parents once more. After many years away, Professor Olakunle was finally heading back to his village of Lodun. He had worked incredibly hard, studying diligently to become a big shot law professor. Olakunle couldn't wait to see the proud looks on his parents' faces when they saw how successful their son had become. As the car pulled up to the village, Olakunle's heart raced with excitement. So much had changed, yet simple thatched roof huts and winding dirt paths remained just as he remembered from his childhood. He could almost smell his mother's delicious stew cooking over the fire. But before reaching his home, Olakunle came across the great river that cut through the village. This was the same river he had to cross as a boy, taking the canoe rowed by the village's long-time ferryman. Sure enough, there was the canoe driver. The years seemed to have hardly touched him. Olakunle strutted over, now a highly educated man of great importance. He looked down at the simple canoe driver with disdain.
Well, it is still the old Chukwuma, still paddling away after all these years.
Olakunle said mockingly.
I became a professor while you are still just a lowly boatman.
Chukwuma said nothing, keeping his head respectfully. This annoyed the arrogant professor even more. He decided to flaunt his prestigious education by firing off complex legal questions at the uneducated man.
What is the definition of judiciary overreach? Or can you name the different classes of felonies?
Olakunle laughed as Chukwuma sheepishly shook his head no each time.
You see, you know nothing. My studies have made me a man of great knowledge, while you are just an illiterate.
With that, Olakunle motioned for Chukwuma to ferry him across the river in his canoe. But the boatman had something to teach the arrogant professor first. As the canoe reached the middle of the wide river, Olakunle looked down at Chukwuma the boatman with an arrogant smirk.
Tell me, do you even know how to properly navigate us across this river safely?
He mocked. But Chukwuma simply asked a question of his own.
Professor, can you swim?
Olakunle let out a hearty laugh.
Of course not. As an educated man, I have no need for such uncultured abilities as swimming.
A sly smile crept across Chukwuma's weathered face.
I see. So despite all your grand education, you don't know how to swim. Well then.
Without warning, Chukwuma stood up in the rocking canoe. Before Olakunle could react, the boatman calmly stepped over the side and jumped into the river.
Wait, what are you doing?
Olakunle cried out in panic as the canoe began drifting away, leaving him alone in the middle of the wide river. Chukwuma swam in the water with ease as he called out, "Let's put that book knowledge of yours to test, Professor. We are about to find out who the truly intelligent one is." The current quickly carried the canoe downstream as the terrified Olakunle flailed his arms, unable to do anything but watch helplessly as Chukwuma began swimming towards the river bank with powerful practiced strokes.
Please, I'm begging you, get me out of this river.
Olakunle sobbed, realizing that his prestigious degrees were useless against the might of nature. Finally taking pity, Chukwuma swam back towards the canoe and guided it to shallow waters near the bank. A thoroughly humbled Olakunle vowed never again to mock others whose talents differed from his own. Book smart had made him educated, but Chukwuma's simple skills proved he still had much to learn about the ways of the world beyond his studies. So, from this story, we learn that it is not good to be arrogant or look down on others based on their education level or social status. True wisdom and intelligence comes in many forms beyond just book knowledge. Practical skills and life experiences can be just as valuable, if not more so, than academic degrees and credentials in certain situations. Humility is important. No matter how educated or successful you become, always remain grounded and respectful towards others from all walks of life.